Welcome to Fishing Without Bait. Whether you've gotten here by accident or on purpose, there's always an open seat. There are no entrance exams or letters of reference required. There are no tests, no comparisons with others, and the only homework is to challenge yourself. If you're finding life particularly heavy going, feeling loaded down, and if you're restless, irritable, and discontent, perhaps you have the lenses in your glasses reversed and can only see negativity. Or you're living your life on wishes and hopes. You have found a place where synergy and synchronicity are combined, and where we actually show you how to make magic, abracadabra, creating what you speak, speaking what you create. Not necessarily material things, however, intangibles no currency can purchase. Let us help you help yourself to fully participate in your life and use the power of your mind and its energy to learn to think not from our thoughts, but rather that at them, and become a butterfly emerging from the chrysalis. Thinking back to Dorothy when she landed in Oz and opened the door to the world of color. Come with us, detach and untangle, identify and describe, and live a life without definitive expectations. Explode into our world of full impact mindfulness. Open the door to your authentic self and let the adventure begin. Welcome. I'm Jim Ellermeyer. I'm a behavioral health therapist, and as we offer an eclectic roster of guests, today we have Dr. Randy Bartlett.
Hello.
Dr. Randy, welcome aboard.
Thank you so much. It's a real honor and pleasure to be here to talk with you.
Those are kind words. So tell us a little bit about what's good about being Dr. Randy.
There are honestly a lot of things about being good about being Dr. Randy. First and foremost, I have my health and the health of my family. And so I think that's important to acknowledge in these times. And second, I get to do some pretty wonderful and amazing work every day. I have been an educator my whole life. I joke with my students that I never left school since I was 5 years old, because as soon as I graduated from college, I became an educator and have been doing it ever since. And I think what's so wonderful about that is being in education and doing the work that I do, you really get to see the tangible transformation that you can help other people come to. And I'm sure we'll talk about it more, but I now run a small project-based peace and justice focused high school here in Pittsburgh. And so every day being able to work with young people and help facilitate their opportunities and their futures is just such an honor as a profession and as a vocation, and I have no complaints.
When people drive up and down North Highland Avenue in the Liberty section of Pittsburgh, and they look over and they see City of Bridges High School, and they see a lot of younger people outside doing activities, my own mind, I wondered, the City of Bridges, what is that? I imagine you get that question more frequently than not.
Yeah, and City Bridges is a lot of different things. At its core, it's a small, independent, nonprofit high school, and we have 40 students right now. We continue to grow. We have more students coming and enrolling all the time. But it's more than a high school. It's really a learning community, and it's a space where young people, and frankly people of all ages, can come to try to figure out how they want to explore and then achieve the paths that they want to follow in life.
I was looking at your website, which is quite extensive and quite descriptive. I was struck by one of the beginning statements where it says that the City of Bridges believes in order to have a just, equitable, sustainable, and joyful future, we need to live these values in the present.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that. That's values in the present. And we always talk about time traveling. Here we talk about that it's action and effort in the present that make a future possible. So how does that translate into your mission?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's worth touching on some of the sort of myths that we have in our society about high school, the school experience in general, but high school specifically. That there's a lot of talk about, high school is preparing you for the real world. It's preparing you for your life. And the truth of the matter is, and this I don't think is a surprise, is that high school students and kindergartners and, you know, fourth graders and 50-year-olds, whatever it happens to be, we're all living a real life now. The sort of preparation for real life is a really problematic phrase because a 15-year-old's life is a very real life. And that if you hope, and if we hope as a community and as a society, that we are moving towards a life and a society that is more just, where we treat each other with greater kindness, where we recognize that our own joy and well-being and happiness is served and enhanced by the joy and the well-being and the happiness of others, that if we can recognize that now in the present, it helps us build the tools and the inclinations to not only live that personally, but to live that as a whole community.
I love the way that you're thinking, as when I deal with younger people, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, and they just feel so disconnected, awkward, and out of place and not being able to fit in. And I let them know that you're allowed to think and feel however you think and feel. However, I think most adults discount younger people's thoughts and particularly their emotions as, well, they're too young to really know. They'll get over this. No, the heartache of a 15-year-old may be as sharper or deeper than someone who's supposedly mature.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And the heartache and the struggles are also, complemented by the joys and the excitement and the passion. As an adult, we can sometimes have our sense of wonder be dulled by the sort of repetition of experience. But particularly as you are a teenager, since that's what we're dealing with here, so many of the experiences, the joys, but also the tragedies that you have in your life are new experiences. And as a result, the lows can be very low, but the highs can be very high. And the ideas and the ideals and the passions are really wonderful and exciting. And as a middle-aged guy, really thrilling to be able to be a part of on a daily basis.
I can see here that the way that you're talking about saying that learning must have purpose, meaning, and should spark curiosity and excitement. That reminds me of the Buddhist concept of having a beginner's mind
Mm-hmm.
versus an expert's mind. And I believe that's what you're asking these folks to cultivate, and that it's wonderful to have that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think that is something that I would hope that we can all hold on to. And I hope, that one of my hopes for the City of Bridges students and anyone who comes through the City of Bridges organization is that they can carry that curiosity and that excitement and the sort of belief in infinite possibility well beyond 18 in their graduation from high school.
To explore possibilities. I think that's kind of like the beginning of the old Star Trek, to go where no man has gone before. I think that's really wonderful. And before the podcast started, Randy, we were talking about core values, choices, and non-negotiables, and how that plays into identity formation. So you're dealing with people who are still helping to and shape their own identity and their own thoughts. So how does the City of Bridges assist in that?
Yeah, I mean, it assists in a couple of different ways. Again, one of the so I think it's important to note that I'd spent more than 20 years in education before opening City of Bridges. So part of the genesis of City of Bridges and those choices that we have made as a community come not out of a sort of vitriolic criticism of traditional models of education, but instead a recognition of some of the realities and the shortcomings of what goes on in other educational environments. And so one of the challenges that you have in traditional school environments is that at the high school level, you take a bunch of 13 to 19-year-olds, usually 14 to 18, who are in that space of identity development, trying to figure out who they are and what it is that they are doing and what they want to be and who they want to be and how they want to be in the world. and you put them in a building that is predominantly housing people of the exact same frame that they're currently in, and then say to them, figure out who you are with only these other, 15, 16-year-olds to sort of bounce your identity off of. And so City of Bridges is really intentional in engaging our students in the larger world outside of the schoolhouse walls. In addition to, having our students involved in community projects, we also have people coming in from the community to work with our students. Our students all have internships in which they're able to engage with professionals who are living the futures that these students are exploring. So there's certainly this recognition that in order to shape your identity, you need to have multiple experiences with many different people from different backgrounds, different contexts, different sort of cultural frameworks in order to have a really sort of full and robust identity. So that's certainly one way that we do it.
And you're talking about experiential training. Being from the 12-step world myself, we often tell folks that the recovery work does not take place in these rooms. It takes place out there. And when I deal with my patients, I say the recovery work does not take place in this room. It takes place outside. It takes place in the world.
Yeah. Oh, and education's the same way, that real learning and real sort of meaningful sort of system creation and understanding of the intricacies of the way the world works doesn't happen in the schoolhouse walls. In so many ways, our role is to, one, create and provide foundational experiences and frameworks around which to build things, and then to facilitate those meaningful experiences out in the world in which those foundational sort of frameworks can be applied. And then through a reflective process, that's where identity and meaning and purpose and hopefully a sort of clarity of path is developed as well.
Clarity of path. I really like that. That's amazing stuff. I really appreciate what you're trying to incorporate with these folks, and also helping them understand that failure doesn't mean defeat. Failure doesn't mean to surrender. Mike and I often talk about when Thomas Edison was poked by an investigative reporter asking him how it felt to have failed 1,000 times in trying to create that filament that would burn longer and light up the room. To which Edison replied, "I've never failed. I've found 1,000 things that didn't work." So that's what we try to help people take another perception. Which end of the horse do you want to look at? The horse has two ends. The horse doesn't move.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when, as we were discussing previously, the sort of identity formation that is going on for young people, the fear of failure is more than just, am I going to make this spreadsheet wrong? Is this presentation going to flop? There's a fear of failure that is much more sort of central to this notion of being. Like, am I going to fail in becoming the person that I could become, and becoming the person that I hope to become? And so, having a culture and a climate that says, not only is it okay to fail on this project or this presentation, because everything that doesn't work out the way you want it to work out is only an opportunity to learn from. But if you extend that beyond academics and beyond this sort of production of things or ideas to the process of discovering and fostering yourself, because we all, I certainly, the person that I was at 15, I made plenty of mistakes in getting to where I am now. And I think to be able to say that it's okay to make mistakes and to travel down paths that aren't the right path, as long as you can approach those experiences as learning experiences.
As opportunities,
Yeah.
as we call them. Yes, yes, absolutely. So, most people fear to make choices or fear to make uh, decisions because, number one, they're fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, or the how they fear it's going to be judged. Their decision, their choice is going to be judged by others.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that is, I think, where uh, intentional culture, particularly in a community in which a bunch of teenagers are residing, an intentional culture that supports that reflective process, that opportunity mindset, um, is not only uh, productive from a sort of outcome standpoint, but from a process standpoint as well. That you come out of it with hopefully a better understanding of yourself and the way you want to go, but you also go through it in a much more healthy and holistic way.
We go through the process of differentiating between emotional and wise mind choices and speaking to oneself. I encourage people to speak to themselves. And as I often ask people to preface decisions is if they're doing no harm. And
Hmm.
if they're doing no intentional harm to anyone or anything, I say please do as you wish.
Yeah, yeah, and that's I think what we hope for the world. I mean, part of City of Bridges, I mean, larger sort of mission and goal extends beyond these individual children. I mean, young people. At the end of the day, they are our top priority. So, the sort of daily choices that we make around um, what are we going to do and how are we going to approach this situation are, of course, centered around those individuals. But in terms of the long term, if we are going to envision that more just, equitable, and joyful future, one of the best and most effective ways to do that is to provide communities in which people can grow into themselves with that understanding of the way the world can be.
One of the biggest issues that young people have that come to me, Randy, is that they feel they're not being understood or listened to.
Right. Yeah. And it is, again, um, not to sort of lay blame, but one of the challenges that you have in many educational institutions is a problem of scale and a problem of uh, intention. That it is so hard to hear and to be heard when you aren't able to form meaningful and personal relationships just because there are so many people in that context. And then the second is that if the intention of your experience is very linear, and if it is very uh, outcome focused, it's very hard to be able to circle back and to stop and to be able to say, um, it doesn't seem like this is working for you. Let's talk about why it isn't working for you and how we can reshape your experience so that it meets you where you are.
What I hear you saying is you're teaching people how to think through things rather than teaching to a test.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the one of the sort of dirty little secrets of standardized tests and the sort of test-based accountability, and this is frankly is true even before this sort of standardized test era, that started 20 something years ago, is that the vast majority of what you learn in high school, one, you don't really need, and two, you're not going to remember. Um, and this comes from someone with, I have a master's, a postmaster's, a doctorate. I've done plenty of school. But the really important things that you carry forth beyond school, it's not the quadratic equation. That's great. It's wonderful. Um, but it's how to be in the world and how to be with yourself in the world. And then through that, how you are able to navigate the world in a way that gives you the opportunities that you want to have, while at the same time, supporting your own well-being. Those are the things that matter.
We're having a great conversation, and I would suggest that you tune in to our next episode, our next podcast of Fishing Without Bait, where we continue our conversation with Dr. Randy of the City of Bridges High School.
Please check out our website at fishingwithoutbait.com, where you can listen to the show, comment on our discussions, and find out where you can subscribe to our podcast. If you're interested in flying the colors of Fishing Without Bait, click the shop icon on our website. We have clothing, mugs, cell phone cases, and so much more. Show the world that you fish without bait. This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.